Students, this is your tutorial on how we're going to take our model in Revit and we're going to use Autodesk Inventor and Adobe Illustrator to actually turn this into some cut paths that we can take to our laser engraver and cut all this wonderful stuff out. So here we go. The first step that you want to do is pretty much create a copy of your entire house. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go up to File, Save As, and I'm going to save this project. And I'm going to give it almost a brand new name in this case. So I'm going to call this one, the name plus laser cut. So that way, this is the only one I ever edit, and I don't mess with my original. So as I save this, we can see that up here it does go to the solid laser cut. And now I can start to do some tricks to get this to work. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the first floor, and I'm going to get rid of almost all of my interior walls, or as much as I possibly can, because that's less data that I have to mess around with in Autodesk Inventor. I'm also going to get rid of a lot of other things like components, because this is only going to be an external model, and we don't need to worry about any of the internals. So I'm going to select one of my interior walls, and I'm going to select all of them that are interior, and I'm just going to delete and get rid of them. Next, I'm just going to start to get rid of and delete a lot of other things that I do not need in this case. So let's see here. This is going to go away. That's going to go away. And I'll get rid of that. Let's see here. Everything else is pretty good. I like that, so that's not an issue. I'm also going to go to the 3D view, and in this case, and I'm going to get rid of my entire basement, as I won't be needing that for my model either. So in about 2 minutes, I was able to get rid of all of my interior stuff and components, and I'm just left with my roof and the walls. So I'm just going to go ahead and save that. Again, make sure I'm not saving over my original file, just my laser cut. I'm going to go up to File, Export, CAD Formats, and I'm going to export this as an SAT file. And I want to make sure that I'm in the 3D model, because then it will export the 3D. So in case you're not, just go back to your 3D, should say 3D view, go from there. I'm going to select Next, and it's going to ask me to save this, so you save this in your Google Drive. I'm going to put it on my desktop right now. So you're just going to give it a second for it to gather all this data and to export it. It might take a little bit, so once that's done, let's just double check here. I should have a file. There it is. Looks good. So now I don't need Revit anymore. What I'm going to do is open up Autodesk Inventor. Since it might take a little bit to load, I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to start it once Inventor is loaded. Now that I have Autodesk Inventor open, I close out of Revit. I'm going to go ahead and go to File, Open. I'm going to change the file of type right here down to an SAT file. And I'm going to navigate to my SAT file. I'm going to go ahead and select Open. Again, this is going to be quite a bit of data. It says, what do you want to create this as? I'm going to leave this as an assembly, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Again, this might take a few minutes to open up. It's a large file. It's going to generate a lot. So once it opens up, I will restart the video. Eventually, after things load up, you'll get this import dialog box. You want to just go ahead and hit OK. Again, this is prepping the model, and then we're starting to import the model into Inventor. Alright, so now the model imports. It's not exactly perfect, but it is a pretty solid representation of it. It's all in this generic color gray, which is fine. So what we're going to do now is we're essentially going to take this item and we're going to kind of go around the house and get all of our walls on a drawing sheet. So to do this, we're going to go up to File, New, and we're going to select a new drawing. We're going to put this on a drawing, all of our parts, and we're going to end up exporting it, but we want to put every single one of our pieces on this so we can use this properly. Alright, now that our sheet is open, we're going to go up to sheet 1. We're going to right click on it, select edit sheet, and for our size here, we're actually going to go to custom size. And we're going to change the height here to 12 and the width to 20. That's roughly the size that the laser cutter inside of 105 can cut. So we'll go 20 by 12, select OK. That will change the size of the paper. We're going to go over where it says default border and ANSI large. If these don't show up for you, you can just click on this little arrow next to it to get them to show up. And you're going to right click and you're going to delete both of these. That's going to give us a blank page in which we can start bringing in different pieces. Now I'm going to go to the assembly file that we imported. And I'm going to start in one spot and I'm just going to move around the house. So right here, this is the front of the garage. So I'm going to right click on this part and I'm just going to open the part. It's going to open it into a separate tab and this will make it the active piece. So here this is. This is going to make it an active piece. So when I go back to my drawing here, I'm going to select base, and since it's an active piece being open, this is the piece in. So I'm just going to use the view cube and I'm going to manipulate this in kind of the way I want. And I'm going to make sure the scale down here is 1/48. What this will do is the current house that's in there is the full model, and we don't want that. Instead, we want a 1/4 inch scale. So to complete a 1/4 inch scale, we need to use a scale of 1/48 to help us, because it sees it in inches. So we divide it by 48 and that's what we're looking for. So once I change that scale, make sure it's 48, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. It says you must save the part assembly document before placing the view. You can go ahead and hit OK. And it brings in that piece for us. So we're done with the garage. I'm going to close out of it. I'm going to go back here. And so I make sure I know what I'm doing is I'm going to click and delete that face. So now that I'm done with that, I get rid of it on the model, nothing to worry about. Next, I'm just going to kind of move clockwise. So I'm going to select this next garage wall, open it, go back here, base view, manipulate the view cube so I can see it the best I can, and I'm going to kind of move things kind of close to each other, utilize as much space as I can. Make sure it's 1/48, always make sure it might change. And the last thing you want is to have parts that are misrepresented. So I'm going to hit OK. Yep, go ahead and save it. This opens up. I will now close the part. I will go over here. I'll delete that part. So now what's going to happen is I'm just going to continue to move around the house until I get everything that I need. I'm going to go ahead and show one more, and then I'm just going to kind of move around on my own. I'll pause the video because you don't need to see me do every single one. So I'm going to do one more. Here's this piece. Open it up. Base view. Select. I will rotate this. You see when I rotated it actually brought it down to a 1/100 scale. So I'm going to change that to 1/40. 1 divided by 48. Bring it down here and select OK. OK to save. So again, just bring in the faces. What I'll do now is I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to complete the majority of this sheet until I have to move on, and I'll show you how you can create another sheet if you have to. Alright, so I got here, ladies and gentlemen. I'm starting to I only have about 3 spots left, and I want to utilize as much of the sheet as I possibly can, so I'm wasting the least amount of material. So right here, I've got a gap here, here, and here. So I'm going to try to find a piece and then kind of manipulate it best I can. So I've got this piece in here, this wall, and this seems to be pretty small. So I'm going to open this up. Here's the piece. Okay. I'll go to my base view. I will rotate this. And can I get it into here? Might be able to rotate it. Ooh, look at that. So I can fit it right in there. Again, that can save some room for me later on and as I try to manipulate it. So you might want to think about how to arrange your material as best as possible so you waste the least amount of board that you have. So again, I'll pause the video and I'll keep continuing. So I'm at the point now where I have one garage left kind of for all my outside walls, but I don't have any room to put it on this board. So next what I'm going to do is I still need room. So I'm going to go up to New Sheet here, just select New Sheet, and just like that it makes a copy of the first sheet without any of the stuff on there. So then I can go through and I can open up this wall. Again, this would be my garage wall. I can bring this in, make sure it is a 1/48 scale, and bring it into a spot on here. So now that I have this, I'm going to close out of that part, kind of using the same method I used before. And I have all of my exterior walls. Don't worry about all the doors and windows in there. And I do have one interior wall here for the back of my garage, but I'm not going to put that in because I don't need it. So at this point, I'm in a good shape. So next what I'm going to do is I have to do the roof. And the roof is going to take the most time, and it's the most complicated. So I'm going to open up my roof by itself, and I can't export just the faces on this like very quickly and get it all to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create these as separate parts and then put it all together. So here we go. I am going to pretty much create a face of this, and I'm going to do that by creating a copy of the object. So I'm going to create a copy of the object, and I'm going to select my faces. So I'm going to select all the faces of my roof, just the top faces. And that's all I need. Then down here, I'm just going to create a surface, and I'm going to select OK. It'll say it could maybe mess something up. That's fine. Doesn't really matter. So now I have this surface. I'm going to go to my base view, and I'm actually going to get rid of it. I'm going to delete it. So now I just have the faces of my roof. Now I'm going to create each one and kind of extrude them. So I'm going to take a sketch. I'm going to sketch on this surface, say this part of the roof, and I'm going to project all of my edges for that roof. I'm going to go ahead and hit Finish Sketch. I'm going to hit Extrude, and I'm going to extrude this to 0.118 or 0.125. It doesn't really matter. And I'm going to make sure that is a solid extrusion. So I found an interesting little thing. When I went to extrude and clicked on a solid here, it wouldn't let me. It was saying this was an open loop. Well, if I go back into this sketch and I zoom in, sometimes the corners don't match up and there's a little gap that's missing here. So I can just project that little gap so I do have a closed area. If not, you can draw lines. So now when I go to Finish Sketch and I extrude, it will find it here. Extrude at 0.118, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. So that's going to be one part. I'm going to go ahead and now do that with all the other parts. Alright, so now I just need to kind of finish the rest of the parts here. And this one also poses a nice little fun issue. Over here in solid bodies, when we first created it, we have one solid on the part. I'm going to right click and I'm going to change the visibility of that. So now when I go and I sketch on this surface, I have all my original lines, so I can just project these out and finish the sketch. And again, I might have some issues where I need to have some open gaps. In this case, I don't have any open gaps, which is nice, so I'm just going to hit OK. It does make it invisible here because it's still part of that solid too, which we made invisible. So I'm actually going to go back into extrusion, and what you need to do for each one of these is you need to click this button called New Solid. It's default there for the first one. The next one, it needs to be there. So I'm going to hit OK. When it does that, you can see that it creates this as a new solid. Up here in the solid bodies, it's there. I'm going to right click and turn off the visibility of that one, and I'm going to go around and do that for all the other ones. So this is my last one right here. With this being my last one, I did find out that there's a little gap here. So I'm just going to project this. I try to go and extrude it, wouldn't work. So again, extrude, make sure I click this new solid button, hit OK. And now I have all of these bodies. I can click on each one and I can show the visibility. And so here are all of my parts right there. And what I can start to do with them is actually export them into the sheet. So I'll show you how to do that in the next video.